Alright, people are just hearing me talk about that. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The Magic Box. I wish it was twice the length, because we have twice the size of content this week, because we missed last week.
Yeah, my apologies for that. Last minute family medical emergency, like literally an hour and a half before we were going on the air.
Literally, we'd gone over the show notes.
I prepped all the stuff, and then had to take my dad to the ER, and so... My apologies, totally on me, but hopefully we'll make up for last week's lack of an episode.
Your dad is doing better?
He's out of the hospital now.
Excellent.
So he's good, back home.
Oh, he's okay.
Yeah.
Last time we checked, but it was questionable whether or not he was getting out.
Yeah.
Oh, that day.
Yeah.
Not in general. He's not forever gone.
Still alive.
So, in theory, we have 2 weeks of stuff to cover. Last week, we wanted to talk mostly about the MTGO Cube experience we had. It was obviously very fresh in our minds, but we have still a lot to talk about there. This most recent iteration of MTGO Cube felt, I don't know about everyone else out there, but it was very different for me, kind of different for you, probably.
Yeah, I think I was trying too hard to put my own feelings about how Cube should work onto the list.
MTGO Cube?
Yeah,
just like
my own
strategy.
Yeah, and like my own head, I was like, I want this and this and this to work, and this doesn't work. And I kind of failed to adjust enough, and kind of had like a less than super successful run.
I think that opens into a larger conversation, maybe for another time, about kind of just adapting to unique cubes and what is cube in general, what is the feeling about that. But it's good to bring up. Now might be the right time, but I like the topic. We're also going to talk about today You Make the Card updates. I know that 2 weeks ago when we were prepping for the show, or a week and a half and change, I think Ethan Fleischer, or it might have been Trick, somebody at MTG had mentioned on Twitter that they had sent out emails to the final 8.
I didn't get
well, exactly, because it was like, well, we knew we didn't get selected, but we knew that they were out there, so we were going to do some speculating. But now we actually seen the 8 cards. And it was funny because I had loaded the page around midnight Eastern, and when you first loaded it, it had like everyone's name and like a brief description and contact info.
Cut that out.
Yeah, and then like an hour later, that stuff was kaputs.
I never saw that.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, I didn't put too much emphasis on it at the time, and I thought really like, well, maybe they're going to have a bigger showcase with these people, and I think that they're already starting to kind of do that.
Their legal team like swooped in and like.
Well, it was legal. It was probably more creative choice.
Anyway,
so we've got You Make the Card update. A lot of talk at MTGO. What else is on our show notes? Oh, so obviously slivers are coming back in M14, which is an interesting choice because over the holidays, one of the things we had kicked around were adding slivers to the cube, and ultimately it was just a Sliver Queen scenario.
Kicked around is generous.
I went pretty deep on it.
You said slivers, and everyone else kind of pulled out pitchforks and torches.
I went pretty deep on it. I think I made a very exhaustive list of anything that I thought could be cube-worthy of slivers 6 months ago. And at the end of the day, it was probably like 3 or 4 legitimate cards. Because again, in cube, it's got to be able to stand on its own. It's got to be able to do its own thing. And slivers are obviously the hive mentality. So we'll be interested. We'll delve a little bit into how maybe M14 is going to change that and give slivers another shot in cube. What else are in those notes?
Slivers, You Make the Card, the M14 spoiler, tiny ones that we've seen so far, and then recapping kind of the Moto Cube and things like that.
Okay.
As well as usual,
our packs and our picks. Yeah.
So
that should probably cover us for 2 hours. So let's jump right in. Let's see pick one, pack one today.
Okay. So today's pick one, pack one. We've got Juzam Djinn, Oblivion Ring, Tooth and Nail, Dark Confidant, Geist of St. Traft, Hearth Kami, Gilded Drake, Chromatic Lantern, Exalted Angel, Searing Blaze, Vraska the Unseen, Exclude, Mother of Runes, Scavenging Ooze, Stone Rain.
Okay, I think it's a safe time to take an Oblivion Ring out of this pack. It's a much more exciting time to take a Tooth and Nail out of this pack. And a potentially equally as exciting time to take a Dark Confidant or a Chromatic Lantern. Those are my feelings right out of the gate.
Chromatic Lantern is the fun V, and Oblivion Ring is the humdrum V. to make an Iron Man reference.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of where my spectrum is. Like, I really like the 5-color, like, Chromatic Lantern Co-Relic kind of deck. And taking Chromatic Lantern first, like, really gives you a great idea. You know, like, okay, now it's game on. And you can kind of try and shoot for that, and it is enjoyable. Oblivion Ring, obviously, is probably the most flexible... No, probably not the most powerful card in the pack, but it's certainly going to be played in the most decks.
I mean, it's... Yeah, we can't say it's the most powerful, but it is easily the safest and easiest to cast kind of power level card out of this pack. We have another breaking news, new M14 spoiler. So we'll finish up this pack, and then we'll talk about the new M14 spoiler that Usman has generously dropped in our chat for us. But we'll come back to that after we finish this pack. So, yes, Chromatic Lantern, 5-color control. It's ironic to me that in 5-color control, I'd like to have a card like Tooth and Nail. That can often be a finisher in those decks.
I mean,
it's not the best, but it's worthy.
It's okay. I think that Tooth and Nail's pretty low on the list of cards I would want to take out of this pack. Like Oblivion Ring, Chromatic Lantern, I would probably take Dark Confidant before I would take Tooth and Nail. I'd maybe even take Geyser Saint Traft before I took Tooth and Nail.
Would you take Geyser Saint Traft before you took Bob? Because I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
Okay.
I mean, 2-color versus 1-color.
Plus, the thing about Bob in Cube, and Bob is definitely a double-edged sword in that format. When do you want to take a Bob? Pretty much this scenario is when you want to take a Bob. When you can really
It's so much easier to draft your curve when you already know you've got a Bob.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, middle of pack 2, you see Dark Confidant, you're like, oh, I'm in black, I can take Bob, but I've got all these 5-drops and stuff. Oh, no.
Yeah, I really want to play this Shieldred in my deck for some reason.
Yeah.
But, so I like taking Bob there. So to me, it really boils down to Oblivion Ring, Tooth and Nail, and Bob. Because I'm taking that Tooth and Nail over. I'm taking Chromatic Lantern. I think this one is an easy Oblivion Ring though. There's no reason not.
I think so.
In my opinion here.
Okay, so we'll switch over the view here for a second. Breaking spoilers. This literally just got linked in chat.
That is not an underrated Mother of Runes, by the way. I know that this is a post Mother's Day pick, but we did not. There's no. I don't think Mom quite makes the cut with those cards. But for the audio side only audience, you aren't looking at the image we're looking at now. So Eck, tell everyone this minutes old news of this new spoiler.
Archangel of Thune, 3 white. It's an angel, 3/4 flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control.
Okay, so very, very initial interpretations, because we're literally just seeing this for the first time. I'm looking at kind of a combination Battle Grace Angel, a Johnny Goldmane. If that makes sense to you. That's kind of how I'm evaluating this card right out of the gate.
I'm looking at this and am sad it's not Baneslayer Angel.
Well, yeah, but you're going to be that way no matter what. So breaking news also... Baneslayer Angel not in Magic 2014, so
pretty clear.
I'm willing to put money down on that one.
Yeah.
So this is a duels card technically, because it says it has the D14 logo. But I could say pretty confidently that this is going to be an M14 Mythic. You'll notice the mechanics keywords that are incorporated on it, even the flavor of it just kind of really resonates with core set Magic.
This also is very likely. It's interesting because of the core set now kind of being designed. It has its own thematics to some degree, and they've already announced that Johnny is going to be in the base set. Like Johnny is the White Planeswalker. It's not Gideon.
Oh right, yes. Well, they there was an excellent article that I had found through Reddit. It was like some gaming website had just gone ahead and done their duels review, and in it, there's obviously a lot of tidbits between this digital game project and the core set that's coming out, which is a really unique experience for set spoiling. So yeah, we have a Johnny variant coming in.
And
how does that affect this card?
Well, I would assume because you're looking at other white mythics that have a on life gain trigger, that it's very likely that either we're going to get a reprint of a Johnny Goldmane or a new Johnny that also has a plus to gain some amount of life. Or something similar to that effect.
So how about in a Johnny that somehow has an interaction with life total? It could be a new Johnny.
I mean, it could certainly be a new Johnny, but I think that it's going to have some kind of effect that like gains you life as like its plus.
Sure.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can't see a world where this would be a Mythic in M14 and a Johnny Goldmane would be a Mythic in M14 because there's too much overlap.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they combo really well. What a way to, like, strangely just kind of, like, put out a Johnny Goldmane's middle ability. It's like, cast it on turn 4, use the plus ability.
Yeah.
Cast this on turn 5, then use a Johnny Goldmane's plus ability to get...
Pridemate is also back. Johnny's Pridemate.
Mm-hmm.
So... I definitely think that even if we're getting a Johnny, it's probably like some, giving something lifelink or gaining life equal to like a creature you control or something.
So let's look at this card. Maybe more of a vacuum. Maybe how that applies to Cube, because a Cube again is kind of Magic's vacuum. It's really the ultimate in where does this card kind of line up, and I think that it's costed very effectively. 4/4 flying lifelinkers for 5. Is a bit touchy in Magic as far as like swings in the game can go. So you'll notice the power on this card is dropped down to 3, but thankfully the toughness lives outside of bolt range, which is really nice. But again, Flame Slash and M14 as well. So
right.
It's all staying close.
I think this is just not a big enough impact at 5 mana because you have to, provided you either have some other form of life gain, you can make it, you can pump your team or whatever immediately, but otherwise, you have to, attack, and then after that combat, then your guys get bigger. Like, it just takes too long to kind of like start the snowball rolling down the hill.
I don't think it's that bad. I think that since it doesn't say Archangel of Thune like deals combat damage,
yeah,
or Archangel of like the fact that it's
the
got
quality
universal,
of this card. The quality of this card goes up and down very distinctly by how much incidental life gain you have. So, like for example, could you imagine the blowouts of like cycling Renewed Faith with this thing in play? But potentially, how awesome is that?
Anytime we could make Renewed Faith a better Magic card in Cube, we're very excited about
Renewed
it.
Faith's days are very much past us.
I mean, how gross is like Righteous Cause in Cube now?
Oh yeah.
Whenever any creature attacks, gain 1 life.
Mm-hmm.
Blowout Town.
Yeah.
I was going to actually tweet that we have this on the show, try to get a few more people in the room to try to talk about it. Again, I think it's costed the way it should be costed. I think if this went to 6 mana and didn't change its stats, it wouldn't be worth spending this much time talking about. I think if it went to 4 mana, it would be absurd, and we all know how good Restoration Angel, just the size and the fact that it has evasion is. It's all kind of a combination of thing here. I think this card is costed very effectively, and when looking at it for Cube, we're going to have to really look at where it fits in with other 5-drops and how that kind of pans out for it.
We're getting a couple more.
I had seen Enlarge. It's kind of like the new take on Overrun, I think.
Yeah. So, I'll swing this over here.
Okay, we got a whole Salvation page here as we update on the fly.
So,
I'm in emoticons, that's why I can't.
Enlarge, 3 green. Target creature gets +7/+7 against trample until end of turn. It must be blocked if able.
Not by all creatures, which is kind of a bust.
Yeah. What was that, like was it Tower Above? The green...
Tower Above was like... Tower Above was actually surprisingly close to this card, but it was better because you could, like, target a guy.
Yeah.
It was, like, really weird Provoke.
And then,
I guess Provoke.
Advocate of the Beast, 2/3 for 2 and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on target beast. So, I mean, that's a card, I guess. I wonder if there... Oh, and Vastwood Hydra was the other one. X green enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, you can distribute those counters to any other creatures you control.
Yay, Ivy Elemental, you do something. I mean, casual players love the kind of like make a big XX creature, especially when you only have to pay just X mana kind of thing. And this card is a little bit more of a reward for players that think beyond I made a giant vanilla guy, which I really like. And again, I can't tutor it up with Ranger Vios, which is a bit of a bust. It's kind of why I liked Feral Hydra back in the day.
Mm-hmm. It was kind of cool for a while to have like one guy like that when Ranger Vios was a bigger deal.
Oh yeah, I remember playing. I played Ranger Vios for a Feral Hydra at the Pro Tour. So I obviously liked it quite a bit.
Hunt the Weak, 3 and a green. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature fights target creature you don't control. Gurin in chat asked why they're spoiling this so soon. These are coming from Dawn of the Planeswalkers.
Duel of the
Planeswalkers. Whatever.
Although I like that title for something too.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Planeswalkers.
The sequel, you know, it's like
probably
Dawn
a
of the
book
Dead.
title somewhere out there.
Dawn of the Dead or whatever. So anyway, they're related to that. So it's, you know, they're coming from that.
It could. I mean, yeah. They could. Once the media gets their hands on duels, if there's anyone in the gaming media that also is a big Magic fan, like this information is going to come out. Like I was privy to whichever one Duels 2 was, which I think was the Magic 12 one. So I got to have a hands-on demo of that before it hit the public, and I remember
I've never seen that before.
Well, I was like, I had a smartphone, but I didn't have a chance to take pictures. So I remember like I saw like the Bloodhunter Bat and like the Vampire guys. Like I just kind of had to impart them all via words. I was like, Tormented Soul is this thing, but I didn't really remember the name. But so anyone in the media who can get access to this stuff is going to be able to push out that information ahead of time. And obviously this, what is it, Archangel of Thune?
Yes.
Was probably a mythic that was unlockable in a deck.
Right.
Which someone eventually unlocked, and that person was Magic savvy enough to kind of be like, oh,
that's a new one.
That's a card I should probably let the world know about.
Alright, so...
Oh, we didn't go to Mythic Spoiler. Mythic Spoiler's... That's our man right there, Mythic Spoiler.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're on top of it.
Oh, wow, nice. So anyway, let's get... We kind of had the non-sequitur there.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of bring it back to Cube. So you like it's all kinds of good stuff on Mythic Spoiler. Check out mythicspoiler.com to see information as such on the upcoming Magic 2014. And we'll get back to Slivers later in the show. Everything got thrown for a loop as we saw this new Mythic Angel. But I will say it's costed effectively. It's not, very blatantly like, oh, this is an auto-include, or it's like, oh, it's
right.
overcosted.
If it cost 4, it would be like an absolute slam dunk. I mean, we were playing Linvala for a long time.
Oh my, have you looked at the foil prices of Linvala?
Has it just gone through the roof?
Oh my, it's $100.
Why?
I don't know. Like, it's a one-of in pod. Like, it's not a very good EDH general from
right,
what
that's
I understand.
a funky general.
But it was, like, expensive before. I remember, like, I was looking...
small set Mythic foils.
Medium-sized set. I mean, Rise is one of the best sets ever. I'm just like... Linvala was one of those cards, like, when I cut it from Cube, I was like, oh, it's a unique effect, but it's, like, strange to vanilla guy. Like,
yeah.
And Hero Bladehold had come out when I cut it, and I was like, I'll probably never get back in. Like, I didn't even bother to keep it, because I was like, oh, foil Mythic, I can sell this. Yeah. Sold it for $30. And now I'm like, well, the barrier to put it back in just got way higher.
Just, the lesson of the day is the lesson of every day. Never sell a Magic card ever.
Yeah, that's always true. If
you need to buy a car,
the more unique it is.
A car, a house, or a wedding, don't sell Magic cards.
Archangel of Thune. We're gonna have to break it down. When we're looking at Dragon's Maze and looking at putting in that Scion or whatever.
Oh, the one that makes a bird token?
Yeah, the one that would have been good if it didn't have to cast from your hand.
The one that was literally infinite with everything if you didn't have to do that?
Well, I just put it on a Mimic Vat or whatever. We're really looking at the 5-drops in white and trying to be critical of them, and this is what we're going to have to do here. Now, this card offers us different kind of play space than another Cloud Go Ranger, another Geist Honored Monk. Yeah. And so in that regard, it has a good shot of making it into Cube. It's probably going to require a little more thought to see how kind of impactful, and kind of look at where the overlap in other abilities are with that card, where it's like, oh, well, a lot of times...
It's competing with a lot of powerful 5s.
Right, just like a seemingly, like a 3/4 flying lifelinker for 5, end of sentence when it enters the battlefield. Meh in Cube, but, again, are there a lot of things that cost 4 or less that have incidental lifelink or life gain on them that...
I got your combo right here. Zeranorb, very obviously.
Zeranorb is very good, but how about just Kitchen Finks?
It's not as nearly as good as Zeranorb.
What are you talking about?
It combo... Well, yeah, Kitchen Finks.
Well, there's another never die Kitchen Finks scenario?
Yeah.
It's like, cast Kitchen Finks, cast this card, just attack forever with Kitchen. Or literally, like, heaven forbid you have Carrion Feeder in play. So you like Carrion Feeder, Kitchen Finks, then you cast this card at 5.
Infinite Carrion.
So you have infinite life,
Infinite
and then
life.
you have infinitely large Carrion Feeder, infinitely large Angel,
and anything
else that happen to be on the battlefield. Yeah.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Already moving up in value from minutes of thinking about it. They aren't guaranteed to be an M14. True,
That's
but
certainly true.
I'll put money on it. This card will be in
History has kind of shown us that for the most part, when there are new cards in Dawn, they get print or.
I'm not gonna out anybody at Wizards, but they've been pretty good to me with the Duels product, is telling me what's coming where. I think the only time that Duels has really broken that in recent past was with the Archangel of Strife, but we knew that was going to be in Commander.
Right.
That was like a Duels unlockable.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's coming down the road. So exciting. Spoiler time all the time. It's hard to go back into our previous conversations, but we had what seemed like a very easy pick one, pack one today.
Mm-hmm.
Go with Oblivion Ring.
I did want to talk real briefly. I know you haven't seen this, so I want to show. On top of our normal middle of the week.
Eck put together a...
I have one from
your own
Moto
stream.
Cube.
Okay.
So this was on stream, and it was kind of hotly debated at the time because it was a pretty close pick. So it's the start of pack, and I can't see this, so I'm going to have to pull up a larger version. So this is...
so
we just finished pack
have
one.
A bunch of red cards. You have Incinerate, Keldon Marauders, Strangler Geist at 2. You've got Croson Grip, which I'm not even sure I'm mentioning, Volcanic Fallout, Domri Raid, Ball Lightning Rune, Goblin Blaster at 3 or 4, Koth of the Hammer, Blastoderm at 4, and then Thunderblast at 5, and Inferno Titan at 6, with a nice Stomping Grounds, Wimbriss, or Windswept Heath in your lands. Yeah. Those are your first 15 cards.
I'm looking like a very red-green aggressive creature-based deck. So,
I don't think you're... Well, you could be like almost mono red splashing green.
Right. So options abound here.
So the cards we're looking at out of the pack that Eck has opened are Avalanche Riders, Tarmogoyf, Apocryphite, Thundermaw Hellkite, Primeval Titan, or Sword of Body and Mind.
And technically, I guess, Thelonite Hermit.
No, we're not. That card does not exist.
Right.
And to me, this really boils down to how you evaluate and look at your own deck. I think that Thundermaw Hellkite is an easy card to snap off right here. Actually, so are Avalanche Riders. And then behind that is Sword of Body and Mind. I think those are really the three cards I'm looking at. But I'm looking at this deck being, I want to head towards mono red. I want Ball Lightning, Koth of the Hammer, and maybe Thunderblast to always be good in my deck. And if I start, because like the green cards I really want to play in my deck are already both double green. So cards like Tarmogoyf and Primeval Titan have really dropped off in value that are in this pack. Tarmogoyf's a fine Magic card, but it's not really what to be doing in the aggressive red deck. And so ultimately, I think this boils down to Thundermaw Hellkite or Sword of Body and Mind. Sword of Body and Mind, just amazing raw power level. And again, it's a 5-drop, but hopefully you're going to have plenty of creatures at the bottom.
That was like kind of the discussion that we were having in chat and with everybody I've talked to is like, Thundermaw and Sword of Body and Mind are kind of the two front runners here, and they're both 5-drops that should win the game on the spot.
If you ever plan on playing that Domri Raid, though, you should just take Thundermaw Hellkite.
Right, but at the same time, like, Sword will win you games that Thundermaw won't.
Sword has the capacity to win games that Thundermaw won't, but Thundermaw goes better with the A plan that I feel like your pile is constructing.
Yeah.
I think that's what it boils down to.
I mean, it was definitely I went back and forth on this from one for like the full.
I can see the screen capture already has 19 seconds left.
Yeah.
I think that when you take Sword, in a way you're opening up your options, but you're also kind of diminishing the value of cards that you've already taken. So I think I'm just taking Thundermaw Hellkite here just to try to I'm going to go with this plan. I want to play Ball Lightning and Koth and have them be effective in my deck. If I take the Sword, it's like, okay, well now I'm definitely playing a Dominate Blastoderm. Where can I fit in the green cards kind of situation?
So I ended up taking Sword of Body and Mind, and then losing to Thundermaw Hellkite in the finals. I ended up like very red and green, but I had like the Stomping Ground, the Taiga, 2 more fetch lands, like another red. I think I had the Dragon or the Rootbound Crag,
yeah.
Whatever. So like I had very good mana. I ended up being like an aggressive creature base. I played the Domri. The sword was excellent. It won me my first. I played blue-green twice.
Oh, well,
I mean, so like obviously
results oriented.
That's very lucky. But then I lost to Thunder Mahawk in the finals.
It's weird that you played against blue green twice when this pack has a blue card in it, and,
Yeah,
and actually literally 2 green cards, and you're also drafting green.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know where.
I don't know how it happened.
I don't know where the other people in this draft.
One guy was like control, the other guy was like value, like mana wars and stuff.
I mean, that's a great pack for an example of how to evaluate swords in a cube draft, especially with aggressive creatures. I think that the value of those cards changes, and you need to kind of assess them appropriately as such.
Sword of Body Mind is just so insane. Like,
can be. I mean, the MTGO cube format, I guess it's above average there, I feel like. At least we missed the chat because we're Windmill Sword is, go with Thunderma, Sword. All right, well, I think the chat kind of landed on the same couple of cards that we had talked about when we really narrowed it down.
So, we can just translate that straight into discussing Moto Cube. We're going to talk about the MTGO Cube.
Oh, you don't want to do the scenario picks today?
We got a lot to talk about. We can get them in later.
Okay, we'll come back to it. We'll try to do it at the end of the show.
It
It is, we mentioned the MTGO Cube. We brought it up with this particular scenario. But reflections of the past MTGO Cube experience were really what were going to be our main topic from last week. What we liked, what we didn't like, what we experienced. We're not skipping scenario packs. We're going to come back to them. We're going to try to lead into this topic a little bit smoother. So this time around, we've gone through an evolution with MTGO Cube. When it first came to Magic Online, we didn't have Cube tickets. We paid regular tickets. We got paid packs. Those packs had queues you could draft in.
It was a much more normal.
Yeah, it was almost
non-isolated. It felt more integrated.
Yeah, and it felt like, now looking at the process, it felt like a renaissance of cube drafting online. It was new, it was exciting. It gave us products and cards we were excited about.
The list was weird.
Yeah, I mean the list we've debated about and talked about on the show, but we're talking about the draft experience, the play experience, the prize and player support, and how we feel about it. And to me, it's a very different creature than when it came around to Cube to the MTGO just about a year ago. It feels like a very different landscape. And I drafted probably close to 10 times. My record was 16-6 overall
this week
for the 1 week of MTGO Cube drafting.
Yeah.
And I was split. I did half Swiss and I did half single limb to try to get a better feeling for how those were kind of being consumed and played by players. And I had mixed results with both. How about you?
I mostly did single eliminations. I streamed probably around 10 drafts over the course of the week, like 1 or 2 a night, depending. My record wasn't great. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It's on the old videos. I had it posted. I think it was something like maybe like 17-10 or something like that. I can't remember.
You had a few mental lapses from what I saw.
I definitely, the problem was I was constantly doing it, after getting off of work, or at the end of the day, so I was constantly, tired and not paying attention when I was doing it. So I definitely did not play my best Magic, which is part of it.
Do you feel like you also maybe forced an archetype or a scenario or two?
I think I just didn't adapt to the way the list is. So, the biggest example of this is, we talked a lot about how there was so much mana fixing in the MTGO Cube, and we kind of talked about it, but I didn't necessarily really internalize that. So I was being constantly flustered and frustrated by playing against I had one of my opponents went his actual curve: turn 1 Kurt Ape, turn 2 Bitter Blossom, turn 3 Kitchen Finks, turn 4 a Johnny Vengeant.
Nice.
Just the whole rainbow. And I was trying to draft these 1 and 2 color more linear, more streamlined decks, when the majority of the opponents I played were at least 2 heavy splash, if not 3, 4, or 5 colors. I had more than one opponent who never played a basic land.
Yeah, that's cool in a way. I think that
I think the problem with that I kind of had felt, though, is that if you make the 5, the multicolor, that kind of thing, because obviously your power level in your spells is going to be a lot higher if you can just take the best card out of every pack and play them all. because there's so much access to fixing.
Okay.
By making like that high power level multicolor deck as consistent as like the linear like monocolor decks, those decks like why I kept trying to draft mono red or trying to draft like these aggressive like almost mono red decks or red green or red black, and I kind of realized after the fact like why am I bothering to do this? I could just draft like the 3-color pile of all the best spells and get there every game because there's so many dual lands that I can take.
I mean, there are definitely times where I opened up packs in this particular cube that were like 6 to 8 lands. Yeah. And it's hard to try to draft any kind of monocolor or seemingly really linear strategy when the card distribution is such. And I kind of laughed. It was like opening revised packs where you would get 5, 6, 7 basic land.
Another forest.
It's an amalgamation, and it's a learning process. And, I feel like we talked about it a little bit where, our cube, I try really hard to have both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And in Cube's kind of initial inception, especially if you go back and look at the original Invitational Cube, the decks were a lot of monocolor decks. It was like, Nintico Shade versus...
They've gone like almost the other side of the spectrum, I feel.
And I feel like Max McCall had mentioned this on Twitter, that he really wanted to open up the playability with colors, and that was why they expanded the land section. And it's interesting for players because they kind of have to just feel it out. There's not like... there's not really like a WotC distributed primer for what the newest iteration of Cube will be.
I think that when it comes to Cube design, I think, like... Obviously, people are going to want to play 3 or 4 colors or whatever, and you should certainly support people trying to do that, but they should have to work for it.
Define work for it.
Like, you should actively be having to, like, hunt out dual lands, rather than seeing a pack with, like, 4 of them on the wheel. Because there were 6 of them in the pack to start with. Like, I felt like I drafted, like, one of the 4 or 5 color decks. I just literally took the most powerful spell out of every pack, and when there was not a very good spell to take or creature to take, I would just take whatever dual land was lying there, and I totally got there. I never had a single mana problem with that deck.
And that could be fun.
Because there were just so many lands.
I think there are both. I drafted... I never had a better than... I think I drafted mono red twice. I went 1-1 and 2-1 with mono red. And that was kind of my foray into like the kind of monocolor, because even like the green ramp decks in this particular iteration of Cube didn't need to be like just like mono green Rafellos, but that wasn't so much my problem. I think that if you drafted it enough times, you kind of saw where that was and you adapted, and there was a lot less monocolor decks in this particular iteration of Cube. I definitely saw a lot less and heard a lot less about players drafting the mono blue, the mono black.
I very rarely saw it.
White Weenie was like White Weenie is a great example where in most cubes you could find that kind of Crusade Honor, the pure type deck, but here it was so much more just Naya Zoo variants up and down.
Right, because like if you can consistently play a 3-color deck, why would you play a 1-color deck? Like the whole point of like monocolor or like limiting your colors is for consistency, but when mana fixing is so prevalent that you do not even have to try to draft it or make difficult decisions like, oh, this card would be good for my deck, but my mana, I really need to take this plateau or whatever. When that's not even a decision to make, it's not interesting.
It can be. I think evaluating lands differently. I mean, like it's an adaptive strategy scenario.
If lands are limited, right, where they are valuable because there are not a ton of them, and if you want to play like a 3-color deck, you need to get a lot of the dual lands that are available.
Okay.
Right? You have to make much more interesting decisions of like, well, this card would be very good in my deck, I need the removal or I need a win condition, whatever. But I also need to think about my mana, so I should maybe think about taking this, Taiga or whatever, But if it's like, well, this pack has 5 perfectly acceptable dual lands in it and this good card, I'm just going to take this card and one of these lands will come back and I'll play it.
I think it just becomes less interesting. Distribution. I think that you're rewarded for, in our cube, you're rewarded for valuing lands highly across the board, and I think that in this particular cube, since the power level of the cards, the non-land cards, are a little more even keel, and there are just more lands than there were before, it can be harder to evaluate, and it's more an issue of where the distribution falls. And opening a pack with 5 to 8 lands in it really kind of skews the draft process, and now it's like, well, I'm going to take this tropical island really early, which means that I can now just take powerful cards down the road instead of being like, okay, well, I'm just going to take the green cards because I'm seeing I can cut green, I can see a curve in green, I can draft that deck. It just becomes a different animal in that regard. It's not, this you've taken away a skill set. I think you just need to adapt the skill set.
I'm not saying at all that it's like taking away a skill set. I mean, I agree that it's an adaptation thing, and it's an adaptation that I didn't necessarily make as fluidly as I would have wanted over the course of the week. I just think that, the way, at least from my experiences in that draft format, mana fixing was, because there was just such a high quantity of it, everyone had access to as much of it as they wanted, right? Like, I had seen and had drafted decks with 14 to 17 dual lands, or non-basics. You could play, literally anything you wanted, and when it's that free-flowing, it becomes trivial to get it, and therefore uninteresting as a function of the draft.
I didn't think it was as much that. I drafted 2 Boros decks where I think that I had a Rugged Prairie, and I had to play 16 basic land.
I mean, I think I had, 1 mono red deck or something. But, I mean, in any of the decks where I was playing multiple colors or, had a splash, they were always... I always had, a minimum free splash from, multiple dual lands.
Well, then, then it's adaptive strategy. You have to look at the MTGO Cube more like drafting Dragon's Maze than drafting a core set.
Yeah. I mean, no, and that's, like I said, that's something, it's going to change from cube to cube. And I think the Moto Cube is, for a lot of people, I feel like, I don't think there are not a lot of cubes, out in the wild that have that many lands in them.
I think there are. I think there are definitely cubes that are overlanded. I think there are cubes that are over multicolored. And when I say over, I mean, from the mean. I don't mean, in a negative way. That's how you build your cube, and that's the fun experience you want to have. I don't think it's a negative for the playing of that cube. I think it can be an issue for when someone I think this is a good example of let's say you walked up to someone's cube at a pre-release or release event, a local shop, a Grand Prix or whatever, and they're like, oh, hey, I know that guy, let's come cube with us. And all of a sudden, you don't have a really good way to evaluate cards because you pick up a pack with 9 gold cards in it, and you're like, well,
is this weird? Is this
normal? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't know. And I've even felt that way years ago when no one knew about my cube, and I was always like, okay, well, here's a list, a printout or something, you get an idea.
You just keep an Excel spreadsheet printed out.
Yeah, you're that cool guy who's walking around with an Excel spreadsheet of Magic cards. But that way, I felt like everyone was, sure, I built it and I put every card into it. Yeah, but you had an idea of what to expect. When you come up to a Lorwyn draft for the first time, you've never drafted Lorwyn before, but you're like, oh, okay, well, what cards are in this set? Merfolk cards could matter, and I know this because I learned about it a little bit ahead of time. And so with Cube, you kind of need to know that. And it's interesting with the MTGO Cube that, other than just posting the change list, which isn't very helpful, because
it's alphabetical, which is annoying.
We've already talked about how it would be really benefit from kind of a Max McCall article where he's like, okay, well, let's talk a little bit, and then you get to talk about design. You get to talk about a lot of fun stuff that
I think one of the things I really felt like, especially for this update of the Cube list, is that a lot of the changes seem to be there for change's sake.
That's felt that way. That's felt that way many times with MTGO Cube.
But it's Black Knight for Hand of Honor and White
But
Knight.
that's kind of cool.
But it what does that really do?
Well, let's say it does nothing. Let's say that Black Knight is exactly the same as Hand of Cruelty. Let's just for sake, let's say that's the case. You're drafting a cube enough. You don't it's MTGO Cube. You don't have to be the guy that has to go acquire that new Magic card, unsleeve it, sleeve the other one.
No,
but now when you play, it can be a different card.
I totally get that, but I just mean if you're presenting the players a list of here are all the changes we made for this cube. It's 2 columns of 200 cards or however many they changed. It was a lot. If half of them or so are kind of functional swaps, like Black Knight for Hand of Cruelty.
You just like that to be in one convenient
You're
list.
Effectively burying that information of relevant changes more.
Okay.
If it was presented in non-alphabetical order at least, maybe it would be less weird to me. Like if it was like we swapped Black Knight for Hand Runner, like how we have like our change list on the site, like it's straight across like this card for this card.
We would all benefit from and here's why.
Right, that's
all I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
We can't nitpick that we didn't delve deep enough into the list to really see the whys.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I think
Academy Rector?
Yeah, I mean, that was a blank. I think overall with the card changes, I think the thing that I noticed the most and would come up most frequently were the Mirage Fetch lands. I thought that was a great change that I'm looking forward to implementing in our own cube.
Yeah,
cards like Sylvan Library, Scroll Rack, and most notably Sensei's Divining Top would go up in my pick order because of the more easy access to fetch lands, and I really like that. We're going a step further with our cube by bringing back, Step Link's Plated Geopede, where I think those were cards that were already in the MTGO cube.
Yeah, they were there. I mean, they just got slightly better.
I think those were the greatest bonuses. I didn't really go off the deep end at all with a draft strategy with new cards from the MTGO cube, I feel like.
I did 3-0. The Swedish deck I drafted, I 3-0'd with almost mono green Natural Order.
Okay.
It was like Elves. I didn't have Fellas, but I did have Gaze Cradle, Garruk Wildspeaker.
Okay.
Natural Order for Progenitus or Simic Sky Swallower.
Okay.
I also had Ulamog with the Gaze Cradle and the Garruk Wildspeaker.
Okay.
So in one turn, I Natural Ordered for Progenitus, and then tapped Gaze Cradle for mana twice, hardcast Ulamog, and then Primal Commanded a land to the top of my opponent's deck and gained 7 life.
In that particular game, would you say the Progenitus was necessary?
I mean, I definitely had games where I would not have been able to Natural Order for a creature that would have won me the game, except for Progenitus. Like, the fact that it, killed in 2 turns, was relevant.
Now
in multiple games in that draft.
That does bring up, we'd mentioned that cards like Eureka, Emrakul, Progenitus are in the MTGO cube. What feels like strictly for the cheater mentality.
They're very power level outliers.
Yeah. How did you feel that way with Progenitus? I mean, there was no way under the sun you could actually cast this card.
No, so I was basically monitoring. I had a tropical island, a hinterland harbor. Remember when I was talking about free splashes?
Sure.
I had multiple free blue sources, so I played a Brainstorm and the Simic Sky Swallower.
My point is, you had a card in your deck that you
literally couldn't cast.
Only could cheat.
Only could cheat into play with Natural Order.
And did that end up feeling like very much an outlier for how the rest of this cube played out?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was the most powerful deck I drafted by a wide margin. And it was one of the few decks that I played with or saw that wasn't trying to just compete with, cards on the board and, the more typical game of Magic. Right?
Which to me is still what a lot of MTGO Cube is about. To me, MTGO Cube is creature combat, definitely on-board card interactions. It's not about spells.
I tried drafting Storm. It went poorly.
I told you before this week started. That
to be fair, my opponent, I lost the first round to an opponent who had 3 or 4 of the 1-mana black discard spells, counter spells, and main deck Lodestone Golem.
Sweet. So
it was just the maximum hate.
Hardly though, because those are all cards you would main deck and play.
Right, but clearly. That is bad.
It's not like round 1, turn 2, game 1, your opponent's Aethersworn Canonist, go! That would be bad luck. But if your opponent played good Magic cards that happen to just hose this deck that doesn't even exist in that cube, then...
They happen to be, the worst cards for that deck. Is more kind of what I'm getting at.
So overall, lesson learned as far as card choices go. There are still those kind of strange, powerful outliers for the MTGO cube. I wish they would just kind of commit one way or the other. I'm indifferent to Natural Order and to Progenitus, but I think that it needs to be an environment where you can also do a wide range of other powerful things.
There needs to be more than one of that power level thing going on. If you're going to have it,
you have access to the Eureka.
No, but I mean all those cards the Natural Order, the Eureka. I had the Eureka in that draft. I didn't play it, but those all kind of function in a similar.
But I'm saying there's a small handful of outlier dots on the rest of this very concentric circle of
Yes.
power level Magic cards in the MTGO cube.
Right, so I'm saying you either need none of the dots or more of the
Yeah,
dots.
I'm completely agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I think that our cube does a very good job of kind of having that circle in the center is much smaller, of like, creature combat, fight in the zoo area, and then there's a lot more dots around the outside of different things you can do in different ways. And I like that in cube, but I think you need to kind of commit one way or the other. If you just have these few outliers, all of a sudden Eck drafts a deck where it can reliably have turn 3 Progenitus in a world where it's like, okay, well now I'll cast Obstinate Baloth.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't add up.
Comment in chat about construction cube in theory. MTGO cube is devoid of theory that quote-unquote cube connoisseurs know. I don't think the MTGO cube is meant to be metagamed. To be honest, Emrakul doesn't belong, but I think that's the goal of the MTGO cube. The goal is to produce those I turn to channel Emrakul someone hype stories. Agreed, it's not supposed to be picked apart.
I don't think the MTGO cube needs hype. I think that
Well, I think part of the
people
problem,
like us do a good enough job of trying to get people to play it already.
I think part of the problem is, I don't think they would necessarily like. Let's assume that they want people to have like these amazing cube stories in this very short week. Where you're turned to Emrakuling someone or whatever to get people to talk about it or think about it or play it. I think that wouldn't be as big of an issue if cube was regularly available on Magic Online. I think that because it's this like special attraction where it's run out for a week to 2 weeks at a time in between set releases and things like that, and kind of its own, it's its own format, but it's barely a format because it really only exists for these short amount of times, things like that. I think if it was a more regular thing, that like you could do on any given day, and it was more integrated with the rest of like Magic Online, I think that wouldn't even necessarily be an issue or a complaint. I think if it was just a regular living, breathing format like anything else on Magic Online, that they updated the list when they do like the banned restricted list changes, for instance.
That could, I could see that being a thing, but I think that it needs other support, which actually blends into the next kind of thing on our list here. I don't think Lewis has been here for this entire conversation because
he just got here.
Yeah, he must have just got here because that comment is not in alignment with what we've been talking about this whole time. But to move on, we talked about card choices, but now we're going to talk about kind of the cues in general. It was a very different vibe for me this time, and I think that something needs to be done because the hype. I think the hype for the MTGO cube is kind of gone. I think the luster is left.
Well, I think the problem is that everyone is excited for the MTGO cube, or they're excited to play cube, play with these cards, and then they see what it costs them and what they can win in return, and I think that completely deflates a lot of players. And we've talked, I don't know, we've talked a little bit about on this show, but we talked generally kind of Magic players are so eagle-eyed for value, that when you present them, here is your entry fee, it is X dollars, you have the chance to win packs that are not going to be worth anything really after the end of this week, and we take these cues down, and Disneyland like fun itchy and scratchy bucks. The first reaction for a lot of Magic players is to go, well, that's not worth it. Why bother? I could just do something else and win actual packs and cards that I could trade and profit from.
Yeah, and I think that I think that most Magic players look at the cube cues as an opportunity for fun and a diversion from grinding the draft cues, which aren't even a thing anymore.
I mean, that's certainly true. Like, the only reason, the real reason to do cube on Moto at this point is like pure enjoyment, pure fun, because it is, in all reality, it is very negative EV.
Oh yeah, I mean, to me, like the thing about the Swiss cues is you could go infinite in cube tickets, and you're effectively paying a $2 entry fee to have the best tapped-out.net draft you've ever been part of.
Right.
But you're always, you're just paying for the fun of it, which is kind of, similar to the theory of the monthly rental system from TGO. But I don't understand why we can't have both. I mean, it's all digital ones and zeros, and we're not affecting the economy. We've already figured out how to circumvent the problem. When we were giving out DII packs for cube cues, but still, when that was the current draft format,
Yeah.
like that killed the constructed side of things because people like their EV
It
on
flooded
playing
the market.
their EV on playing a constructed event bottomed out.
Yeah.
Because now their packs are worth nothing because all these
Well-
cube players are coming through the system. So we moved to older packs, which was great. There was a time period where it was modern packs. So it was like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
That was like the utopia. You get your TPF queues were next ticks. You'd be able to go through all this stuff.
Yeah, and you could like chain drafts going back and forth.
Which was great, and then they kind of scaled it back and brought in the cube tickets, and now we're at a point where, you know, the grinders of MTGO have zero interest in populating the cube because they see what kind of negative EV it is, and the players that are there for fun see it as that rental price, and thusly just come and go as they may. I mean, I took part in multiple drafts where my opponents of rounds 1, 2, or 3 would just not show up.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do great in the cube weekend overall. I mean, I think I ended with a positive match record, but it's not like I X-O'd the week. But I mean, I blew $40 in tickets, you know, on just queue entry, and got, you know, I have nothing for it, obviously.
The experience, you had the fun,
Right,
you got to do
but,
whatever you wanted.
It's like, I could have used that money. I could have gone to the movies. I could have, whatever. Like, it's not like I'm, when like you're normally drafting, like it's an investment, right? So like even if you're losing, you're getting cards.
It's about expected value.
Yeah, it's about expected value.
It's not an investment. It's about expected value. It's about opening 3 packs of this product and knowing I can get the money rares.
What I'm saying is there's no reason for cube drafts to be this negative EV. Like if you could just chain, if like the entry fees, if you could enter with just cube tickets and get paid in just cube tickets.
Which is when I first heard about cube tickets, I thought that's exactly what it was. And I also thought it was like 1 or 2. Like you need 2 cube tickets to enter or 1 cube ticket.
So it's like, if it's like a 4-3-2-2 and you need 3 cube tickets to enter and that's it. You get 4 cube tickets or 3 or 2 or 2. Like, if that was the system, then that's fine.
Now, I had mentioned this a lot to Aaron Forsyth, Lee Sharp, Worth over at MTGO like a year ago, when I was like, well, you just have cube booster packs and pay out in cube booster packs like you would Return to Ravnica booster packs.
Yeah.
But you can't open them because they don't technically have anything in them. You just use them to enter the next draft
They're
like you would...
fuck bags. Just...
like anything else. And the compromise that they kind of found out of that was the cube tickets compromise, but they put limitations on them and made them this completely different object, which negated the whole premise I was trying to come up with. And the fact that they're non-transferable negates any value they would possibly have.
If you could trade them, then maybe the system, like, you could...
It would help balance the system out. If
you could use them as, like, change.
No, if you just started by making them a tradable commodity, they would immediately have worth. As we're right now, they do not have worth.
Right. They could be, like, 0.3 tickets. So, like, when you go to bots, they have, like...
The market would figure it out. It would. That would be your nickel, your dime, your penny. Whatever it would be, they would have value.
Yeah.
But since we don't, we're in a world now where people just don't care. I mean, for the first couple of days when the queues are up, they're firing all the time, and you might see more of your opponents. But by the end of that week, I'm investing my time
and money.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's like playing the Swiss queue. You're losing $2.
If you have cube tickets,
you do.
Right, but if you don't,
you paid 8 once.
Yeah,
it's like signing up for an MTGO account. Like you can look at drafting the Swiss queues on MTGO like signing up for an MTGO cube account. You cannot be bad enough. If you are watching this show, there is no way you are bad enough to be a losing player on MTGO cube drafts more than $2 a draft in the Swiss queues. Sure. Impossible.
Sure.
You win, you get 16.
But again,
you 2-1, you get 8.
But again, like,
you 1-2, you get 4 or something.
Right. You still have to figure out some way to generate those real tickets.
No, you don't. I'm telling you, you're paying for it. I'm telling you, this is the process you're renting. That's what it is. If that was just the case, that would be a thing. I might participate in it. But the problem is I can't even do that because now my opponents are not showing up. No one takes it seriously.
Yeah.
Like, even if I had come to terms with...
And that's just over the span of a week, of, like, the special attraction week.
Yeah, that's... Like, you're talking about making this a mainstay? This system would collapse. No one would ever cube again. It would be a detriment to the cube community.
I think it would have... If you were to make it a mainstay, they would need to adjust the format of the pricing, the payouts, the keys, things like that.
Right,
I think you could absolutely make it a thing. That
you're talking about making a living, breathing thing. You could do that, but it's going to need people that are dedicated to working with that, because that a living organism is going to adapt, and the people need to take charge of it. You can't just like, oh, we've erected it, it's there, ta-da, we're done.
Right. It's not like printing a set. You have to constantly curate it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you had like, okay, you've got these you've got the cube queues that are up 24/7. You can enter them with just cube tickets. They pay out in just cube tickets, so you can just spin your wheels on them. And they update the cube list on the ban restricted list that gets printed out with new sets.
But Wizards would never do that, because there's no rake. They would have to institute it back in the system where there was some kind of packs. And they could. Like, the system that you want is a paradise where we will never exist. Maybe if cube tickets were tradable, then we would start to have this conversation where if they had value, then you could just run cube queues on just cube tickets. But they have no reason to ever do that. What I'm talking about is trying to make a more healthy, engaging, inviting environment where maybe we can get the grinders to come in the 8-4 queues. Maybe we can bring that world back. It is possible. But we could also have a world where the Swiss queues, I'm at least comfortable. Like right now, I'm asking for a very simple compromise. I'm asking for
people to show up and play Magic.
I'm asking. Here, Wizards, take my $30 this week. Take my 15 drafts. Just take it. I just want to participate in this at my leisure. I want to wake up at 4 in the morning, no pants draft. I want to show up with my friends Friday night, sit down in front of a screen, have a drink, and we'll all share a draft. We're all renting the time and space and the fake cards. All you have to do is facilitate it, but at least have people show up. The fact that you can't even get people to show up for these rounds and participate in it, there's no incentive to do it. Something is very wrong with the system.
Right. And I think it's just, it's become the negative EV side of it has just become so glaringly obvious, or it's become such a big part of like how people look at the cube queues online. It's kind of this constant talking point. Like anywhere you see people talk about the Mono Cube, they're like, "Oh, why would you do that? It's so negative EV. Blah blah blah. You lose so much money."
Well, it's so weird. I mean, and people devalue it so much. Where it's like, yeah, sure, I'll spend $2. I'll draft the deck because the drafting is the most fun part. And since I'm going to get nothing out of it anyway, why bother playing?
Yeah.
Like I'll just pay $2 to have a tapped out .NET draft. Like
that looks way better.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, we could never do this because it would counteract the system. But we could just set up the draft system on tapped out. You give us 50 cents and you can draft a deck. Ta-da!
Yeah, like I'm sure we can figure out a system for doing
like that's what a lot of people were doing, and by the end of the week it was so frustrating to me because it was like I was trying to set aside time, I was trying to have these interactions. I'm literally like IMing people who are still logged into their accounts like, hey, do you want to play this match like at all? Hello? Like just nothing. Nah. Like what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm not asking.
I didn't experience too much of that in the single elimination.
Single elimination, games. I didn't see it as much. I definitely saw people. I had a round 2 opponent just bail.
Yeah,
I had a guy F6 through his turn 1.
Oh, it was just done.
Quit the game.
Just rage quit.
Quit the game.
Yep.
In the single elimination queues, not round 1 either.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. I mean, obviously in the dream world, all you gotta do is bring back SSE, TPF. 8-4, 4-3-2-2 payouts, have those be Nix ticks to enter those queues for a week or week after. That would be amazing. I mean, when they had the TPF queues on with Cube, it's like the best time I've ever had on MTGO, and it wasn't just because it was actually profitable, but because I was playing formats and all the matches with engaged players in formats I loved. Nowadays it looks like an experience it's almost going to be hard to recapture on MTGO.
So. The chat is kind of commenting about potential solutions. One is having, like you were talking about, having a proper pack payout for packs that people actually want. I mean, I think part of the problem is just, the MTGO economy is so interesting because of how, things just really spike in one direction or the other in terms of like value.
And there are so many liberties that the Wizards gets to take with it. I mean, I remember the very first time I ever did an MTGO draft. We're talking Odyssey, Torment, and we get to the finals, and I have no idea how to split. And the guy's like, "Oh, hey, do you want to split?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "Okay, well, I'm just going to give you, more Torment or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, that's fine. Like when I get my prizes, I'll just pick more Odyssey, and I'll have an even number of draft sets."
Yeah.
quit draft, concede, or whatever, and here's your payout. It's automatically set for you. You don't get
a choice.
Like when you go to a store and you draft. This is true of most stores, I would think. Hey, it's F&M draft. Okay, you get 2 prize packs. What would you like? Yeah. Like, my friends wanted to go draft a Taco Bell later. I have a Dragon's Maze. I guess I need Return to Ravnica to Gatecrash.
Yeah.
Here you go. Enjoy your next draft.
Yeah, like that was always like that's one of those like weird like requests / features for Magic Online that I feel like people have been asking for since beta. Right. Like the beta, like when it was like Invasion and Onslaught or Invasion Odyssey in 7th edition, and was like, why can't we pick the packs that we win?
And this is a horse that is so dead.
Oh yeah.
That now when we have this conversation, we don't even bring it up.
No.
We're never like, hey, you know what would really help us out with this whole cube problem? Like, what could you really do?
We've broken that horse down to like a molecular level by beating it.
It's ridiculous. And to me, it's like, implement these things, and I'll want to draft more on MTGO. Like, let alone like the formats that would be helpful to put more packs in Modern in the format.
Right.
Make more people more interested in cube drafting and want to keep coming back to the well. It's like you've already done the power gimmick. Like, how much more can you really do before... When I talk to players that I'm like, MTGO Cube's coming back, like, that's going to be really exciting for you. I'm like, nah. Not interested. Not going to do it.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, part of me, I mean, we've been, like we're talking about Onslaught, or Odyssey, Invasion, that time. We've been on Magic Online for so long at this point that it's so, we've been through so many different versions and revisions and server architecture changes that lead to just total collapses of various things and features that come in and out and get updated and whatever. And it's like, part of me is like, for a long time was frustrated about like why they choose to focus on certain things and don't fix what to me seem like very obvious things to add or implement. But at this point, like, it's so...
Their logic is so past us, if it even exists, that we don't...
Right.
We don't question these
our
things.
Feeble, mortal... tiny human brains cannot understand the 7th dimensional wisdom that they have applied to this system. But it's, it part of me is frustrated, but also, like, I'm too tired of it to even really care that, like, the new beta is coming out and they're revamping the entire UI instead of just, like, adding things that players are actually interested in.
But we felt the same way when 2 switched to 3.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've been through this process so many times at this point with specifically Magic Online, not to mention any other game ever, that it's like I don't even care anymore. I mean,
we've weathered the storm so much. We're still on the ride. I mean, to me, it's like I'm not going to get off the boat because the waves have picked back up again. To me, it's like, well, while I'm there, just make this part about the experience something that we can easily replicate in real life, and we already do. And as someone that is very active in Cube community and now sees the MTGO Cube is a great window to players that don't have a lot of experience with it, I don't want to see that turned into more of a negative or more of a passé thing that does not have the excitement level that Cube has IRL all the time for people like us. It's scary, and it's this last iteration really kind of put me on edge, where it's like, who are the people in these queues? Who are the ones that, like, you're interested enough to want to do it, but not actually want to do it, and what are you getting out of it anyway?
Is this like your first experience with Cube? Because if so, that's pretty negative. Are you like, like, how are other people approaching it? It just felt like, I don't know. It feels like it should be more exciting than it was.
And this time around, with the Lorwyn Morningtide drafts, had it been under the previous 8-4-4-3 system, I would have been very excited. Like, I really liked Lorwyn Morningtide draft. But this time around, every time I got paid out on those single limb queues, I wouldn't even bother. I would just let that stuff just sit in my account. I was like, I'll deal with it later. Like,
I'll find a bot.
The packs will be worth more in a couple months anyway when, like, the market isn't flooded with them. But it's not even flooded because you don't even get that many. But there's not an equal level payout. You can't be like, okay, well, I was a good run with Cube, but I have a very even number of draft sets that I can at least draft Lorwyn for half a week and have fun with that. To me, it was like almost being handed nothing. And just being like, well, one day I'll look at that and hopefully it'll be fun and be worth something. And that made me really kind of want to move to the Swiss queues, where it's like, well, I'll just pay my rental fee and get to have this experience. And then that was taken away from me. And it was... I don't know. I got to go back to the drawing board on ways I feel we could really improve the system that could be implemented before the next iteration. Because I think that if these trends continue, the number of people that are be interested in cube drafting online are just going to dwindle.
Right. And it's going to get to the point where, if I'm, at Wizards and I'm in charge of this and I'm looking at where my players are distributed and where, what cubes are firing and how often, if it continues, I'm going to look at the cube thing and just be like, well, why bother?
But for them, it's like it's just free money. I mean, you're just like you flip this free money switch on when you know that you can get an appropriate stream of income, and then you flip it back off to make sure people stay interested enough, and then you wait, and you flip it back on. And like for them, it makes sense. Like, why would they, if it ain't broke in their eyes, why fix it?
Right, but
they're not the ones trying to play the matches.
If you flip the free money switch and nothing comes out, if no free money comes out of the faucet,
it would take a lot. To me, it would take a lot, and I think the community would suffer a lot more before a change was implemented, and that's why I'm trying to be proactive about it. I'm trying to say, like, well, if these trends continue,
the
next time around, it's going to be you and me. We're going to be like, all right, let's stream it, let's get people, and we're sitting here watching a blank screen for 15 minutes, being like, well, we could talk about cube drafting, I guess.
Yeah,
that deck was super sweet. I really wish we could have played it. And like, to me, it was like every time I got to play all 3 matches, whether it be single elimination or Swiss,
it was exciting.
I was more stoked than the sweet plays I even could have made.
Right.
If every time my Nightveil Spectre took a forest and then cast a green card the next turn.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that horse we're going to try to keep alive for a little while, so we'll stop beating on that one.
We'll bring this discussion back up when they announce the next... Hopefully, when they re-announce the Moto Cubes Q, in the future, whenever that is, it'll have a slightly modified version of things. It won't just be the same exact setup.
I mean, ideally on a seemingly realistic wish list. Maybe a nice Max McCall article telling us what's coming in, what's coming out, and his feelings about them.
At a minimum.
An easy place to reference them. I mean, I even think during the week of drafting, I had to go and search the list again to be like, okay, well, can I even find this card anymore? Or what's the likelihood of seeing things like this? Which was really frustrating. I couldn't click on. I expected to be able to click on the queue, and you know how the queue brings you the prize structure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For cube, it should bring you to the list.
Yeah.
To know exactly what's in there. How nice would that be?
The list should be a part on the Wizards cust help link that you click. It should just be built into the
yeah, but the orcs have to do that all the time. They're always like, oh, I don't know what's in the cube. They're like, here, I don't know what this is. Tell me. And it's just it should just be in the thing. So those seem like very simple things to implement. Those would be very nice. Having a realistic payout that would entice people to want to play, and we're not asking for anything big here, but again, I'm already okay with the concept of renting this time and space. Just make it worth my while that I could actually play Magic.
Yeah.
Because right now it's just not happening. I'm literally just giving you my money and then getting almost nothing. And that's where the line needs to be drawn. So that's where we really need to brainstorm. That's where we need to come up with better ideas, because it's just not working for someone like me that really wants to play. And I'm not even the mainstream audience that it's sell me on this. I'm already sold on it. You just have to make sure it happens.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get off that soapbox. Take a breather here and talk about much more fun stuff. So let's talk about you make the card updates?
Sure.
Yeah, you make the card updates.
So I'll just pull this up.
We're now in the round of 8 and doing it in an interesting bracket contender system.
The final full, the Elite 8, March Madness.
This is a new thing to me.
May Madness, I suppose.
I was really expecting us to kind of see all 8 choices. Maybe even to see 4 and 4, kind of pan it out per week, get our feelings, and then vote. But it's heads-up action. So we kind of have to make some tough choices. So
I kind of thought we were going to get a vote a day or something like that. And then I just kept scrolling, and there's just more and more and more.
Tell the people at home, we'll start with the first bracket here. What are the first 2 cards we're looking at?
Okay. So the first matchup here, in case anyone has not seen this, Consuming Contract versus Double Down. Consuming Contract reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1. Draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Destroy target creature. Or yet to be determined 3rd ability. Or you lose the game. You can't choose the same mode twice.
That just seems really awkward for gameplay. Knowing
how do you track that?
Yeah.
Double Down is exile 2 cards with the same name from graveyards. Draw a card. So the way this is currently worded, you could go 1 and 1. They do not have to be in the same graveyard.
Oh yes, that makes that's a little bit of it. Not quite Night Soil, but there are cards like that.
Yeah. But Anyway,
so there's a play on this, which is there's that Sphinx that already exists on the blue.
Right. The discard 2 cards from your hand, draw 4 cards.
So for Cube, this is like probably the least exciting pair up, especially the double downside, which we just straight up can't use.
It's funny, I voted, so I'll just spoiler alert how I voted on this. I really don't like Consuming Contract. I think that it's kind of personally, I just think it's kind of a dopey design. It's awkward to keep track of, and like, I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy it that much. I voted for Double Down because I think it's a cool card, not specifically for Cube, but for other formats, and also because I saw like an endless parade of like KFC Photoshop jokes that like really kind of endeared it to me.
Yeah, I think the playtest name for this card obviously endears us to us. I think of the 4 matchups here, this is probably the one I'm the least interested in, just because
neither of these seem like
Consuming Contract just seems to like. There are a lot of cards in design that you can make similar to this, but you have to like keeping track of things. It is almost like when you cast this, set aside 4 or 5 emblems.
Yeah,
and then every upkeep you get an emblem.
Not to mention, I don't really think, unless this like as yet to be named ability is a complete home run, I don't think that what you get for this card for eventually losing the game is worth it.
What if it cost a black?
Not good enough. That would even be worse. Like the third ability needs to be like return Consuming Contract to your hand, and you like lose a bunch of life or discard 3 cards.
Well, then no one would ever do that, and the last clause would never be on there.
No, it would, if it was like
sacrifice 7 permanents,
discard 3 cards, and return to your hand.
I think it's just if you sacrifice some certain number of permanents, you can just sacrifice.
Exactly. From the chat, doesn't have enough upside for suspend 4, lose the game, which is basically what that card is. So the second one, Blood in the Watering Can. At the beginning of each end step, if you've lost life this turn, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And Mass Mummification, which enters the battlefield with 13 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player's life total becomes the number of bandage counters on this, then remove a bandage counter.
That seems very... So this Mass Mummification seems very abusable.
And the Blood in the Watering Can seems very powerful.
Yeah.
Like, Phyrexian Arena for free raise deads every turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the enchantments that we had constructed work very similar to this.
Fetches is another one.
Fetches with raise dead is very good, yes. Phyrexian Arena with this is very good, yes. I think...
Confidant.
Yeah, the Blood in the Watering Can is very powerful and can cube worthy at the right casting cost. And Mass Mummification seems... ripe for abuse. So you know how like
Vampire Hexmage for the draw?
Yes, because you can't. Well, no, you could have platinum. Well, okay, whatever. That's way too complicated. But sure, like Timmy's will love Mass Mummification. But to me, like think about Form of the Dragon, how it sets your life every turn.
Yeah.
So anywhere you can like pay life to do something,
right?
Like those effects, like all of a sudden I'm not afraid of my mana crypt, like things like that. Like you've kind of adjusted the gameplay rules and be able to abuse them. And I think Mass Mummification really goes that far. Like even more constructed than limited because this is pretty out there. But Necropotence and Bargain.
Yeah, sure.
My life
draw a million cards.
My life total is going to become 12. All right, I'll go to 2.
And then,
all right, pass. Yeah. Now I'm 12. Like.
So
those are both really cool. If I had to pick one or the other, though, I think Blood in the Watering Can is just simpler and easier to incorporate and more likely to be aggressively costed than Mass Mummification.
This is not going to be aggressively costed. Smart Money is like 5 mana or more.
What?
That is so powerful.
Tortured Existence is still a Magic card.
Second,
and I guess like you're like trading resources, but I just
next pairing, Soul Feaster's Rising. Whenever a creature dies, exile it. And put a counter on this. As long as this has 5 or more counters, it is a 7/7 demon creature and has all activated abilities of anything exiled by it. And the other one is Revenge of Necromancy. Whenever an opponent discards a creature, put a 2/2 black zombie into play. Whenever they discard a land, add 2 black mana to your mana pool. And whenever they discard a non-creature non-land card, draw a card. I like the Revenge of Necromancy one a lot more.
Interesting. I think I like Soul Feaster's Rising more.
I mean, like, Revenge doesn't really do anything on its own. Like, Soul Feaster's Rising is obviously, like, you don't necessarily need to do a lot of work to turn that thing on.
It reminds me a lot of Call the Gravelord.
Yeah, I just think like Revenge like really rewards you in pretty significant ways.
Quest for the Grave Lord. Nah, it felt weird when I said it.
Revenge of Necromancy seems like it really rewards you, or would reward you for kind of planning around it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, like, I remember I was trying to make some kind of, like, Bottomless Vault variant, and this card seems to, like, play with that card. But again, Revenge of Necromancy seems like it's like a kind of like a theme deck card, like maybe like an EDH deck really wants to abuse this.
Yeah.
I'm sure in some weird world there's some kind of, like, strange prosperity, Chains of Mephistopheles, like...
No, just Memjar, Wheel of Fortune.
Okay. And then get super big on
just
those
like,
cards.
Just go crazy with that.
Okay. But again, those seem like more casual format build around me stuff, which could end up being very popular for players.
Right.
Like that could be a home run.
Also,
as
I
far
just
as
named two cards that are in cube right now. So, combo potential is afoot.
I guess. And this will obviously combo with Rector.
Woo!
So maybe that's where our vote should be? See, I was thinking Full Feaster's Rising was more likely to be a cube card depending on cost. But you might have talked me into it, Eck. You might have been like, you know what, this one has a shot.
We need a Bottomless Pit strapped to a Megrim.
Oh, I said Bottomless Vault, but Bottomless Vault.
Bottomless Pit, yeah.
What is Bottomless Vault? That's got to be a card, right?
I'll look it up. Last but not least, my favorite card is in this one. Eldritch Rites. Sacrifice a non-token creature. You may cast target black instant or sorcery from your graveyard. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. And the other one is Demonic Bargain, which comes into play with X counters on it. Beginning of your upkeep, remove a counter and draw a card. And then if it has no counters on it, sacrifice the enchantment and you get an opponent. An opponent gets a 5/5 black indestructible demon token with flying.
A bit outside of the flavor realm, but I understand.
I like it.
Yeah.
This is my favorite of these 8. This is my favorite. The Demonic
Bargain is full flavor.
Yeah.
It is full flavor because it very much encapsulates the pay now, suffer later flavor of black, and it does it in a very different way than the traditional you pay life now, you get thing.
Yeah, like I can very much see this costing like X and a black, and being kind of like a cool, limited time arena, and you're giving your opponent a 5/5 indestructible flyer, but black has ways to deal with that. There are plenty of ways to get around that issue.
But the chat has already brought up that one of the reasons that Demonic Bargain is so appealing is because there are a lot of more variables yet to be defined.
Right. Which how you get X.
Which could end up working positively or negatively for us.
Right. This can easily be, when it comes to play, pay X life and put X counters on it.
I'm just saying, even if we don't get to change any of the rules text at any stage, and now we're setting the casting cost as like triple black and X.
Right, that's putrid.
Like that's something that could happen though.
Demonic Bargain to me is my favorite if it costs X and a black. If it costs more than that, I am instantly falling out of love with this card.
It would be weird that I don't know. It's weird. I guess the enchantment part is like the suspend or the countdown portion.
It's like So instead of chat, it's the black Aeon Chronicler, and they get the guy.
Sure. I'm just saying like it. Instead of being like a sorcery or something, because like this card feels much more like a spell than an enchantment.
Kind of.
I don't know. It's like, well, you can't Rector for this.
Is that your only determinant for what an enchantment is?
No, if you can't search for a permanent, but like anything that's a permanent that has X in its cost is like very wonky. I don't know.
Hydras.
I've already talked about my love for Feral Hydra today, so. Mm-hmm. Well, those are our top 8 from the You Make the Card this week. There are some definite cube potentials in there.
Yeah.
I don't think and the nice thing is, I don't think there are runaway favorites in each of the pairings. Maybe in a couple of them, I think that there's a clear winner.
It didn't really feel like there was like a blowout.
Which is exciting, which is exactly what we want. From tens of thousands of entries. I think really the next part of the process, like when we talked about the ones that we want to do on our show, I had kind of included casting costs ahead of time because I felt like that was an integral part to making it cube worthy. So right now, since we're in a phase before that, it's harder to be like, yes, that could be a cube card. No, that can't be a cube card. We just don't know. So they're all fun. They all, we've seen some sweet flavor. We've seen some sweet mechanics. And again, Cube, like anything else, like we want to marry the two as best we can.
So, we've kind of talked about a lot of the stuff that we wanted to get through today. And I know we were delaying some of our mid-pack picks. We want to get back to that now.
I want to do slivers first.
You want to talk about slivers?
We'll do slivers, and then we'll close the show today on pick scenarios.
All right.
Eck, not so much about the slivers.
No, I think they're stupid. And bad, which is a pretty bad combo.
So, what feels like forever ago now, we talked about... I guess we didn't have a show at that point. We were talking about... I was talking about Sliver Queen, how much like Sliver Queen is magic history to me, and how I really felt like I wanted to find a way to put it into Cube. We didn't have a 5-color card in Cube at that point, and I just kind of like, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to put it in, we're going to try it out. You can Green Sun Zenith for it, you can Natural Order for it, you can just cast it. Things can happen with this card, and I felt like it was a success. I felt like Sliver Queen has worked in Cube the way I've wanted to. It's done things, it's been great. What would you say?
I would say that I see it probably at almost the lowest percentage of any card in the entire cube.
Wow.
Behind maybe... The only cards that I see less often than Sliver Queen are like Giant Growth and, you know, a few other like random pump spells and other bad creatures that are still lingering around.
So still not a fan.
Sliver Queen is all dream, no reality to me.
I'm pretty sure I've cast it, turn 3 against you.
Sure, that is the dream.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
In 1,000 cube matches, that's happened one time. That is the dream.
I don't know if it was once. Whatever. The point is, like, we're very split on this, which is good. The controversy will breed a better cube. But when we were talking about this, I kind of put together a master list because I thought, like, okay, well, if we bring in Queen, you know, obviously it's going to be better if we bring in other slivers. What slivers can really stand on their own? And after an exhaustive search, the list was not super long. And one of the things I remembered most was Essence Sliver, I think, was in the initial cube list way back in the day. I mean, if you want to bring up Essence Sliver.
Yeah, the biggest problem, just in terms of what slivers exist, you know what I mean?
Well, again, you know, for cube, it has to be able to sustain itself. And since it has to be able to sustain itself, slivers are kind of like, you know, the contradiction to that. They want to work as a team. So Essence Sliver, for those listening at home that aren't familiar, is really just like White Hill Giant Sliver that has the pseudo lifelink, and gives that to all other slivers, obviously.
Because of like just what sliver, like if you look at like the list of slivers, the majority of them are inexpensive, smaller creatures. You know, rather than being like. Because Cube Type kind of just generally tends towards, like, the bombs half of things. So, like, there just aren't that many, like, huge bomb, like, 6-drop slivers that are just, like, huge and crazy.
Given all your slivers, Double Strike isn't huge and crazy?
No. Because, like on its own, it's just, like, not that good.
So there was Essence Sliver way back in the day. Probably the most famous of Cube slivers of all has got to be Plague Sliver.
Yeah,
because that's your riff on Juzem Jin, and you know, for a long time we would laugh if ever the Chameleon Colossus made you deal a point of damage to yourself during
the Once Upon a Time Torian Mauler.
Yeah, I was going to get to that because we don't actually play Torian Mauler in the cube right now. But if I was going to bring back the Slivers package,
he would be in it.
He would be coming back.
I mean, he's a pretty good sliver.
He's one of the best.
Chameleon Colossus is the best sliver. Let's be real.
So, yeah, Plague Sliver has bounced around in queues for a really long time, and it's kind of ironically sad that when we added Sliver Queen, it was like the same time we cut Plague Sliver because Black was trying to do other things. So we never really got to have that, like, oh, you're going to play the Sliver Queen? Well, there's a chance it might punish you. Like, look out. That never really came up. What are your opinions about Bazaar of Moxen? You know, I'd heard about Bazaar of Moxen. You know, one of the other topics we were going to talk about, maybe it's going to be on this show. Well, actually, might even hold it. You know, at this point, we should just hold it for next week, and that'll give me an opportunity to look at these tournament results. So we have a question in the chat about Bazaar of Moxen, which is a vintage and legacy tournament series over in Europe. And you know, I've been talking recently about how I feel like vintage may actually be dead at this point.
It's certainly not growing.
Right. So to me, Cube is kind of like the final frontier for vintage. Like, how those things overlap. And initially, that was going to be a show subject for the same week as MTGO. But considering the things that have come up, we'll probably push that to next week. So it's a bit of a preview for next week. We'll talk about vintage cube, how those things intermix, and I'll take a closer look at the Bazaar of Moxen and kind of have a better idea of how to kind of connect those things. I mean,
I didn't even realize that was last week. I thought it was like upcoming.
Obviously, every area that's not North America takes the Eternal formats a little more seriously because there's a lot less of like proxies are okay kind of thing, which I have a real respect for. But it's probably going to be a bigger subject than I thought at this point. So we won't get to it today, but thanks for bringing it up. Look for that next show, a bit of a sneak peek. Jammed right into our sliver segment of the day. So Plague Sliver, most popular sliver in all of Cube Magic.
Sure.
And again,
the best pure sliver.
Well, that's the whole point. Is it's a 5/5 for 4.
Yeah.
It doesn't have sliver abilities.
But I meant like the best non-changeling sliver.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, you have your obvious ones. You have your Chameleon Colossus. You have your Taurian Mauler. You have your Mutavault. You have your Mirror Entity. Like you have cards that are going to get bonuses.
So like, let's just go. You're
gonna do the big search.
We'll just do the big search here, if I can type. We'll get
visual spoiler.
So I mean, like, for the audio side, I literally just typed Sliver in a Gatherer, and look at this. So do you really want to play any of these?
You just go down and you stop on any that you think are going to be good enough on their own. Like the thing about Crystalline Sliver is. Sure, like it's a 2/2 for 2 that has Shroud, but so is like Deft Duelist, and that card has First Strike.
Exactly.
And that 2/1, he's splitting hairs here, but it has First Strike, and so okay, Crystalline Sliver not so great.
Yeah, like Cautery Sliver. This is just like a worse
Goblin
Legionnaire.
Yeah. Like Bone Splitter Sliver. Okay, look, it's a giant cockroach. Great.
Darkheart Sliver.
Darkheart Sliver was on the short list. Actually, it was on the.
That's pathetic.
It was.
That is so sad.
No,
and that should give you an idea of the state of slivers.
First of all, Darkheart Sliver was good in Time Spiral block in the Slivers deck. It can be good against red decks.
What? Darkheart was not in the Slivers deck, sir. The deck did not play black.
It had a sideboard, I promise you.
No.
First of all, it had Gemhide Sliver, so it had all the Magic cards deck.
Sure.
Slow your roll.
It did not play black.
Whatever.
I played that deck extensively. Harmonic is a fine sliver.
Harmonic? Oh yes, Harmonic is. But you went right by Gemhide.
Gemhide, obviously.
Gemhide is one of the ones that I went as far as like when I made a rough list, and on that rough list was Essence, and Gemhide was right behind it as number 2, like actual sliver. Now
it's basically Utopia Tree.
Utopia Tree. The sliver is an excellent sliver, and green decks will just take this card, play it, it'll be good. At the end of the day, it's like, well, we already don't play Devoted Druid. We probably play Devoted Druid over Gemhide Sliver. And after we play Devoted Druid, then we might come back to Gemhide Sliver. But then we have a whole bunch of 2-mana Accelerator guys in green where we're trying to push single-mana Accelerator guys in green. That was a whole mess. But Gemhide Sliver is worth considering, as well as the next one on here, which is Harmonic Sliver.
And Harmonic Sliver, is the closest to being an actual card. I think it suffers from being a multicolor card. I would rather just have Kasali Pride Mage than this guy. Obviously, they're a little bit different, but he's a 3-mana 1/1. Getting a disenchant effect is good, but it's just kind of like, and I'm just not like super thrilled about him.
In our cube, it's better, obviously, because we put more of an emphasis on disenchant effects. I think Harmonic Sliver. If we went there, that card would make the cut. It would be probably the least exciting. That would be the bottom of the spectrum, I feel.
Right. Well, because it doesn't really Harmonic is like one of the best standalone slivers, and his ability just doesn't really come into play on all your slivers because your opponent probably doesn't. You probably have more slivers than your opponent has artifacts and enchantments.
Yeah. Again, it feels like it's way more of a one shot. I think you could scroll a little bit faster through this section. I don't think there's anything in the middle here that was worth considering. Down to Necrotic.
Necrotic's okay. Yeah,
now
the slow Vindicate.
The Vindicate Sliver obviously has some really sweet interactions with
Nickel Bolus Sliver is a request out of the chat. Okay,
I like it. For M14 prints.
Yeah.
The thing about Necrotic is obviously you're going to have great interactions with Raised Dead effects. And you're going to have great interactions with Revel Arc-type style things. Like, you can kind of go deep on destroying a bunch of stuff. And these were things that you saw out of the slower decks out of Time Spiral constructed, for those that remember the time that people were really pushing constructed slivers as hard as they could.
But it's also just very slow.
It's Desert Twister.
Like, that is, by modern standards, very simple.
Yeah, I know. I keep dabbling with putting Desert Twister in the cube, and it's been in there before.
I was trying to remember what Pulmonic Sliver does.
Pulmonic is also one that's just like, it's costed the way as such as it is a sliver, because it's a 3/3 flyer for 5, and it kind of gives your slivers this like Golgari Undying kind of thing, where if they would die, they go to the top of your deck. And again, he's just outside. Like if he was costed like a Phantom Monster, he would be on the list, but since he's a 3/3 for 5 with double white, not as great.
Yeah. I mean, like, Sedge Sliver being Sedge Troll, like,
He's cute, but still not good. We would never played Sedge Troll in cube.
No.
Obviously, the big 5-color slivers are also pretty jokey. Spectral Sliver is just a little too slow, obviously.
Yeah.
Synapse Sliver would be good if we had all this. Like, Synapse and Telekinetic Sliver would be good if we had, like, a full Monty
full-blown
sliver package. But then we'd be playing all these cards where if you just had the one, it would be not very good.
Like, like Two-Headed Sliver, similarly.
Ugh, I don't like that card at all.
Toxin,
As we get to the bottom of the list...
Giant, Death Touch Hill Giant, like, not the worst.
Yeah, I guess, sure. When we get towards the bottom, Victal is actually one that I had actually seriously considered. It was probably number 3 below Harmonic and Gemhide.
To me, this just tells me the depths that you are willing to sink to try and make this work, because none of these are exciting.
Well, Victal would be good. The problem is that like now you're looking at playing Victal Sliver and Harmonic Sliver in Celestia, which is like the deepest 2-color section in all of Cube, and it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're also playing, like, effed up Brindlebore.
Yeah, that card's fine.
No, it's not fine. It's not fine.
That card is really... Like, that card is if it wasn't green-white, let's say it was like green...
If it was a green and 1...
Yeah, that would be too good, actually.
It would be horrible.
No, it wouldn't.
It would not be in Cube.
As a sliver?
A Grizzly Bear that you could sack for 4 life that you had to pay mana to do it. Who cares?
No, I think it's abusable enough. Because you're still getting a Grizzly Bear. Like, the problem about Brindlebore is you're getting a Grey Ogre, and that's not worth it.
Anyway, so
yeah, pretty much this process in a longer, drawn out, more argumentative fashion was really what we went through when looking at slivers for Cube. Again, there are a very few that I really liked that are difficult to kind of get going. Like even like Mnemonic.
Yeah, here we go. Sliver the Aeon's Torrent. All slivers you control have Annihilator X, where X is over slivers you control.
We can all play the Come Up With Ridiculous Slivers game. So, right now, looking at M14 and slivers, it's going to take some really powerful slivers to kind of put them on the Cube map again.
And I need some like mythic slivers.
I'm not going to say it's impossible, because again, like the effects are no longer across the board. They're just your side, which allows you to print more powerful slivers. But already from what we can tell, they're not aggressively costed.
No. I mean, they're just, yeah, I mean, I have my doubts about if we're going to get anything useful out of the new era of slivers.
What's going on?
I was going to just pull up the list of the ones that have shown up.
Oh, yes, because we've got Battle, Blur, Sentinel, Steel Form, Striking, and Ground Shakers so far.
We presumably are getting a muscle sliver.
And if you're listening to this after the fact, go to mythicspoiler.com. They've got all the M14 hot action up there for you to check out. Yeah, there's what's the muscle sliver?
Presumably.
Predatory sliver. We expect that to be the 2/2 for 2 that gives... Or it's going to be printed as a 1/1.
Presumably.
But, yeah. What's this other? Condor Trainer? Oh, it's like a Kithkin Dirigible or whatever? Balloon Brigade or whatever? Yeah. Anyway. So, there you have it. For as far as slivers and in Cube go. It's still a bit of a long shot. I still like the Queen. I think the Queen will hang out for a while.
Again, I think if you're trying to really push like some kind of like tribal, like a tribal cube kind of thing, like you could maybe try and work slivers in.
Yeah, maybe that's actually a good opportunity to introduce slivers in a tribal cube.
Like if every color has like 1 to 2 tribes, and then like slivers kind of go on all of them a little bit, over the top. So like that's like your 5-color deck is slivers.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, actually. Yeah, I like it.
I mean, again, that would require very specific cube building.
Who knows?
But
I mean, that's the fun about being a designer and being a builder. You get to kind of do those things. And you know, one of my problems with kind of tribal cubes in general is that it's like, okay, I took a really good goblin. Guess I better take every goblin I see now.
Right.
Or you know, like soldier, merfolk, whatever.
Yeah, your first pick really kind of. I mean, to be fair, that was a lot of how like Lorwyn was too. Like, I first pick.
I
Wart.
wasn't. No.
First pick Wart. It's
well,
like
that's like the rarest.
Goblin time.
All you do is like cross your fingers, and be like, nameless inversion, please, nameless inversion, tar fire,
or fodder launch.
All right. So now, I mean, the nice thing is now we're going to do pack scenarios when there aren't like 15, 20 people.
Right, we got plenty of people in here,
Yeah,
so these are always popular.
We were pushing 50 a minute ago. Hopefully, some more people will show up so we can talk about pack scenarios for the day.
All right,
jumping right into it. No segue required.
Everybody's so excited. This is what everybody shows up for anyway.
We're in a cube draft with our cube. We have 4 cards. We get past a pack. Eck, what do we have?
So we are currently sitting on Mox Jet, Shelldock Isle, Muldrifter, Lingering Souls. The pack we are past is Trinket Mage, Supreme Verdict, Magma Jet, Reanimate, Oracle of Moldiah, Increasing Devotion, Pernicious Deed, Sphinx of the Steel Wind, Smother, Tarmogoyf, Rakdos Cackler.
Huh! That's a lot.
It's funny because I put these together last week, like the day before we were supposed to record last week, and then obviously that didn't happen.
Right.
So like I thought about them when I was putting them together. I was like, oh, but then like I completely forgot what's in these. So it's like it's a whole new world.
Well, I will say that's a lot of colored cards.
Yeah, yeah. Our one artifact is tricolor.
Yeah, we not only do we not have access to a land, but we also have 3 gold cards. I mean, I guess there's some nice singular color. So I've taken a Mox Jet on power level. I've taken a Shelldock Isle probably on power level, and then I took a Muldrifter because it's like that card's good, and I'd like to play blue. And then I took a Lingering Souls,
probably on power level.
So the chat here, like right out of the gate, they're saying Supreme Verdict.
I think that's the obvious. Like, it seems pretty clearly like that we want to play blue. Like, I don't see this Mox as like, we're getting like this freebie like splash on the backside of Lingering Souls.
Oh, so you're thinking your thought here is, I'm gonna play blue-white, and every once in a while I'm gonna get value out of my Lingering Souls.
Yeah.
Not the reverse where it's like I could play blue-black and I could get the other portion
like
of value.
I could maybe
the
cast
reverse.
the front half of this Lingering Souls.
You don't know. You're playing blue and black. You can get Thirst for Knowledge. Anyway,
I mean, so like the other obvious card I think in this pack is Trinket Mage, just because you already have a Mox.
So we're eliminating Increasing Devotion on the like blue-white control side immediately.
Increasing Devotion is out. I would say Sphinx of the Steel Wind is out.
Even though you have already like a Shelldock Isle for it and a Sweet Tinker card
like
for it and a splash card for it.
Yeah, I think it's still out.
Okay. I will continue to agree with you.
I think the 3 cards that I'm considering in this pack are Trinket Mage, Supreme Verdict, and Smother.
For me, yeah, Trinket Mage, Supreme Verdict, and Smother are definitely the 3 cards I'm looking at. I'm surprised at how quickly the chat moved on Supreme Verdict.
Well, I think it's just because, like, it's a powerful white-blue card. We have white and blue spells. Like, get in there, right?
I think I have, like, 1 excellent blue card, an excellent blue land, and a good card. I don't know, I think I'm taking Trinket Mage.
There's nothing wrong with taking Trinket Mage here.
I mean, because I could still end up playing blue-black in some variety. I could end up playing, like, blue-anything. I could play, like, mono-blue. I mean, Lingering Souls is very good.
Revelark now getting much better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Plus, I'm, like, 5 picks in with a Trinket Mage and a Trinket Mage target already. And now I can kind of start to evaluate Trinket Mage-related cards differently. Heaven forbid somebody else opened up Soul Ring in this draft, which means that my likelihood of seeing Trinket Mage again is very low.
Yeah.
Unlike, effects like Supreme Verdict are more common than effects like Trinket Mage.
I also think that because there's a distinct lack of there's a distinct lack of blue in this pack. So if someone else is drafting blue and they see this pack, they might just take the Trinket Mage because it's a blue card.
No, it is the only
The only mono
just
blue
card.
card.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine it would wheel. This is 5th pick. So yeah, I don't think I'm like going against the chat here. I think I'm going with Trinket Mage, but I definitely understand why people would take Verdict. I just think that you're going to see more opportunities to get Supreme Verdict type Magic cards than you are going to see like kind of like a, maybe Trinket Mage is a fixer, maybe Trinket Mage is a roadblock, maybe Trinket Mage is a utility card. I think there's a lot more area to explore in this particular draft by taking a Trinket Mage here.
Yeah, I think that you could certainly go either way. I think I would personally go Trinket Mage once I have a Mox, but I could very easily see someone take Supreme Verdict here and be happy with it. So I think either of those 2 picks is fine. Okay, so let's go to the next pack.
Sweet. What do we got?
Oh, this one is sweet. I forgot all about this.
Pour the last one? You say the last one wasn't sweet?
So we are 4 picks in. We've got a Mind Twist, Library of Alexandria, Vampiric Tutor, Vindicate.
All right.
And the pack we are past is Harmonize, Rolling Earthquake, Tundra, Kozilek, Bloodghast, Restock, Vidalcan Shackles, Burnham Djinn, Looter Elcor, Paladin and Vec, Manowar.
Man, if only that wasn't that ugly Burnham Djinn in this pack. My eyes.
I didn't even notice I did that.
It's okay. Okay, so I'm playing black in this deck, and I don't know what else I'm going to be doing. I see a double green, 2 double green cards and a double white card I really don't want. I see a Vidalcan Shackles that just doesn't line up with what I've taken so far. And a Kozilek that is also nowhere near what I want to be doing.
Like, the only things, like, close to currently on point are Mirren Crusader and Bloodghast.
Mirren Crusader? Really? I don't really...
In the terms of, like, you already have a card that has a white mana in its mana cost. Like...
I guess that makes sense, but I can't see a world where I would ever take Mirror Crusader over just taking Tundra. That makes sense?
To some degree. Do you really feel like you want to... Because, like, you clearly want to play black in this deck, like...
And I want black early.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, the 2 single black spells I have are an X spell that I'm not going to necessarily cast on turn 1 or 2, and another single black spell which I might cast turn 1 or 2.
You just take Bloodghast.
Yeah, but that seems kind of underwhelming without a better... I mean, like, I guess, like, since we have Vampiric Tutor, like, we can start to craft a plan with Bloodghast, but I also have Library of Alexandria Vindicate. Well, I guess Vindicate is kind of an aggressive card. I mean, it's a kind of a catch-all.
Yeah.
And it's like I want Bloodghast in decks where I want to either attack with it or abuse it, and what I'm looking at right now is neither. I mean, sure, with the Vampiric Tutor that opens the doors.
I think you're just looking at good cards. Like Mind Twist, you're gonna play Mind Twist in every deck. You're gonna play Library in every deck. You're gonna play Vampire in almost every deck. You're gonna play Vindicate in almost every deck.
The chat is very broken up here. We've got Shackles, Bloodghast, Tundra, Bloodghast, Shackles.
Somebody's taking Manowar. We've got...
I mean, if you take the Tundra, who knows how the next 7 picks will look like, but it's possible you could see the Looter or the Manowar come back around.
I think...
And either of those cards could be good in your deck, maybe. Like, I think just on power level and how powerful my spells are, I want to take a Rolling Earthquake because that's an excellent Premier Sweeper, which is a very different direction. I also just want to take Tundra because it's like, this is just kind of a one-off pack where I'm not taking a green card, I'm not taking a Kozilek. Like, it feels like there's a lot of blanks in here for me, and I don't lose anything by just taking Tundra.
Well, I certainly agree with you that there are a lot of blanks. I mean, these green cards, not really doing it for me. Kozilek, not really doing it for me. I mean...
I think this is just an excellent opportunity to showcase the value of taking lands. And now you see a polluted delta in the next pack, and the scenarios are all similar.
And you're still wanting to search for a swamp.
Oh, you could also get that Tundra, then cast your Vindicate or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've already taken effectively 2.5 black cards. There's something to be said for just trying to cut black as
cack the black.
Cack the black. Yeah,
just take the Bloodghast.
I mean, Bloodghast is going to be fine in you could very easily turn these black cards you already have into a deck that wants Bloodghast.
Yeah, it's weird. Something you don't see Bloodghast do very often in Cube, which is something I would almost kind of expect to see more often, is have it play a lot like Nether Spirit. And maybe I'm talking to nobody here when I talk about Nether Spirit.
To me.
All right, but that was a deck back in the day, and you could be drafting something along those lines where it could be good.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you haven't 100% talked me into Bloodghast, but I can see Bloodghast there. My last thing I'll throw into this is maybe you want to push that Library Alexandria a little bit more. You just take that Harmonize.
Go real deep.
Yeah, it's like a green-black rock deck, splash and Vindicate.
Yeah.
And you get like a lot of advantage back that green-black decks often lose by playing cards like Harmonize.
Yeah. I mean, you would be... You're very open. You know, your cards are all single color colors.
End of the day, I'm taking that Tundra, but I don't blame you for taking the Bloodghast. So Ack really kind of talked me into that. I didn't think it was going to be a card I was.
I just like Bloodghast. I like the black recursive aggro deck, and Mind Twist is sweet there.
Oh yeah,
Mind Twist is sweet most places, to be real.
So that worked out well. We're a little ahead of schedule here. I guess we can talk about one of the other kind of small time topics that was on this list. Quick talk about maybe Dragon's Maze sleepers for Cube, and I think there were a couple of cards that I had encountered through other people's talks, conversations on the internets and such about cards that might be good. You can also check the Reddit thread just in case there's anything we missed there as far as questions go. And you can check the email too.
I can't check.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
We will. Nope, no new information. Although, what did... Usman had dropped a question in there. I don't know if he's still here, but he had mentioned... I guess we're this is actually kind of talking about that now. If they're... how Dragon's Maze has kind of affected the Cube. We had an exhaustive changelog, and that had a handful. Talking about Modern Masters, there's not a whole lot to talk about yet. I wish there was more to talk about.
Aether, Spellbomb, and Tarmogoyf. The end.
City of Brass.
Is City of Brass in?
City of Brass. I mean, City of Brass is in. It's the promotional artwork, like everything.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Modern Masters will be sweet, and I have no doubts that it'll be fun, and, playing it will be fun, and I really want to go to that GP.
I don't know if I can go now. I'm so bummed.
I know. I don't know if I can go too, but I want to. But, it'll be interesting to see, what gets printed at what rarities, and, what the draft format kind of looks like.
I haven't really broken down kind of my expectations on it. I think that we could do a lot of speculating on it, but we'll try to close out on the Dragon's Maze. I mean, I know that it's still a thing. So there were a couple of cards. The first that was the one that was what's the big impact in Constructed, and that was Deadbridge Chant. And we had kind of glossed over it a little bit when we talked about the full set review, because it was surprisingly close to one of the cards that we had talked about in You Make the Card. Kind of like a, mill yourself a certain amount and then start to recur things.
Right.
And Deadbridge Chant is very much that card. And what it kind of boiled down to in Cube is mill yourself for 10 at 6 mana doable or not doable?
I mean, I think the problem I have with this card is, it costs 6. It doesn't do anything right away.
I think the problem is it mills 10.
That's a lot. Milling 10 is a lot.
What if it cost 8 and it milled 0?
What?
Would that be better or worse?
Worse?
Worse. Okay.
It costs 8. That's a lot of mana.
So 6 is already the most it could cost.
Yeah, if this costs 3 and milled 1 card or something.
Well, yeah,
that'd be a little good.
Then you would just have an enchantment that recurred a card to your hand every turn.
That'd be good, I guess.
Obviously, there's a lot of advantage in returning a card to your hand every turn. May it be random. We live in a world of Deathrite Shamans. We're always looking for ways to make cards like Withered Wretch better. And for me, it was just okay, this card costs $1 million. It mills $1 million. It's not worth talking about. But the power level is very high, and it does something that's very unique. So, obviously we've seen its constructed implications, and we come back and we're okay, well, let's be critical of it. Is 6 mana too much? Is mill 10 cards too much? And initially we're talking with people, hey, you're already playing green, you can kind of, ramp into that situation.
I agree with that in chat. This is very similar to Debtor's Knell.
Right, only Debtor's Knell doesn't, take away a third of your library.
Right. More than that, actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's
one of the biggest problems, cards like Debtor's Knell and cards like this, which are, very much they're expensive. They don't really affect the board, but they're kind of long-term, grindy, advantage cards. You're returning stuff. Every turn, you're kind of slowly burying your opponent. It's not like you're knocking them out with like a haymaker real fast. Cards like this, not a lot of decks want them.
I think
they're powerful, but not like, oh, Debtor's Knell goes in every deck.
But I think the difference between Debtor's Knell and this card is I think that the green-black color philosophy in Cube is very much in line with Deadbridge Chant.
Sure.
So that's good. That's something I would want. So again, it boiled down to, is 6 mana too much? And or is 10 cards too much? We kind of landed on the side where in a limited 40-card format, 10 cards is too much.
Kind of like what I was more trying to say was like, by the time that this is going to win you the game, in terms of like how long it's been affecting the game and things like that, you're very likely looking at like 5 or less cards left in your library, and that's kind of a sketchy place to be.
Yeah, and it kind of bleeds into the conversation about like, Relic of Progenitus style cards. We're adding Elixir of Mortality into the queue. Like, how does that play in interactions with Deadbridge Chant? Would you ever play it in decks where you also played Eldrazi? Just mill an Eldrazi, reshuffle, and then maybe get something next turn, maybe not. Like, how sweet would it be to like Vamp Tutor? Upkeep Vamp Tutor?
So you get a Vamp Tutor back.
Yeah, I don't know. So that was like that. I think Deadbridge Chant was a true sleeper out of the set in general. We glossed over it in review. I think, at the end of the day, I think we landed on the correct side of it. But it's something I would be more interested to explore. Yeah. And who knows? Years down the road, if Cube became a 60-card format for some reason,
that'd be wacky.
Get in there, Deadbridge Chant.
Sure.
From there, the card that I kind of bemoan the most, and we talked a lot about during our show review, that I keep coming back to, is Nivik Cyclops. Mm. And I think that this one just kind of suffers from just bad timing. That this is a card I really like, but Red-Blue just got some great tools, and I love Turn and Burn. But I really want to see this guy. I mean, I love Convertible Turtle. I love the threat this card has on both sides, offense and defense. I love the artwork. I like everything about it.
I think if this card was like 1 blue, or like hybrid mana or something.
What if it was like red 1?
Like a weird, funky Kiln Fiend?
It's not that funky. It's not that weird.
It's
like a
Kiln Fiend with Defender.
Yeah, but with a big butt.
It cannot lie. What if it was like blue-red hybrid? What side would
that would be better, and we would put it in the cube, and it would be in the red section.
The red section,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, because you can't be a blue card and just casually show up to cube.
I like how the blue side. Blue you didn't let anybody in here.
Please, blue is the elite color of cube. You don't
the country club.
Yeah, if we're personifying cards and they're just
looking down their monocle at Nivik Cyclops,
they're walking up to the fraternity of each color, being like, "Hey guys, I'm blue too. I want in." And we're like, Adam, sorry, we don't have space for you.
We don't take kindly to types around here.
But I love. I mean, like Nivik Cyclops is it's a little bit of everything, and it's a little bit of that mind game.
It's a win condition.
It's a wall.
It's a
win condition.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's like a potential combo piece.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. In the Cloud of Fair now, in the Snap, Frantic Search variants of Cube. This card could even be in Storm Cubes. I think.
Yeah.
That having that additional +1 to power. Is really what kind of pushes it from the Wee Dragon outside. I mean, obviously in the cube format, you're going to find a way to give it evasion. It's not about like, oh, Wee Dragon has built-in evasion.
My favorite talk for this card was, I think it's like a turn 3 kill, where you like turn 1 play a Mana Accelerant, turn 2 this guy, turn 3 armed, like of armed and dangerous, where it's the +1/+1 and double strike, and then Artful Dodge and flash it back.
Oh, that's not horribly unreasonable.
No, it's 20 unblockable. Whee!
See, again, this card's worth talking about. It's that exciting. It's that fun. Yeah. I really think those are my big sleepers from Dragon's Maze.
So the other ones I've seen people talk about and mention. One is Dragon Shift.
Huh.
So this is one that we didn't really consider that much or really talk too much. It was also a very It was also very late in the spoiler season that this got released. It was like one of the last rares. So I think it got spoiled kind of after we had done like our big show on it.
Okay.
And then hadn't really like mentioned it too deeply. But I'd seen people talk about it, or kind of, you know, especially for people who don't have like as extensive collections, you know, looking for tools and things like that. You know, it is a pretty sweet combat trick. You know, like as a pump spell, you know, making a guy get
kind of
flying.
like Wings of Velasvale.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Wings of Velasvale that is also like a big overrun.
Potentially.
Yeah.
You're like almost saying the same casting cost as like Insurrection at that point for the Overload. I mean, granted, you have the small.
It's
you
a
have
little
the
more
small
flexibility.
Side. It's like Wings of Velasvale was slapped to Insurrection.
I mean, like that flexibility, you know. I think there are a lot of flexible cards, especially in blue-red, in this set.
I definitely think this card would be much more worth talking about if it was any creature.
Yeah,
because
if you could do it to your opponent.
And you could do it to your opponent's guys so that it loses key abilities like cast it on Blightsteel Colossus.
Right. The problem with that is
cast it on Thrag Tusk.
The Overload wouldn't work.
It would just have to say all creatures.
Right. So every creature becomes a 4/4 dragon.
Yeah, I think it'd be fine.
It's just like Wrath of God with combat. Everybody dies.
It's like Mirrorweave or whatever.
Yeah.
But that you can't have that wording with Overload because Overload has to have a target. Well, all right, whatever. Okay, that's I get you. I also like. You have another one, right?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say the ascending Law Mage or whatever. That card is like one of those ones that's just on the outside. Looking in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard people talk about this, and when someone had mentioned this, and I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, 3-power fly. I was like, really?
I don't think it's that bad.
Really?
Yeah. Hexproof Phantom Monster?
The days of Phantom Monster being acceptable are pretty long past us.
I don't know. We still play Gale Powder Mage.
Yeah, because Gale Powder Mage like does things.
Having Hexproof is a thing.
Like Phantom Monster to me is like the fallback. Like, well, at least it's a Phantom Monster.
Okay. So
like when Phantom Monster is like your A plan.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I'll give you that. I'm again. This wasn't on my like legit sleepers list. This was like
no, because I heard this mentioned too.
Okay.
So I mean I do see what you're talking about there. It never struck me as like I saw this card immediately. It was like whatever, limited, don't care.
All right, I don't. You know, if I sat down at someone's cube and I saw this card, I would definitely like make a mental note of it. Like
if you're playing,
me.
I think if you're playing like Pauper Cube, or like the no rares or whatever.
Yeah, this is in there.
This is in there for sure.
Yeah,
but I think like especially in our cube where it's powered, like the demands are just so high on cards. Like a 3/2 flyer. I don't care if you have Hexproof, it costs 4. Like
whatever. Poor man's Geist of Saint Trask.
If this card cost 2, it would be in cube. That's about it.
If it was a 2/2.
No.
Like a little bit
of...
No,
it was a 3/2 flying Hexproof for white-blue. It would be in cube.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be.
Anything else than that, not making the cut.
Right, well, we're butting up on our gotta go time. Is there anything else from Dragon's Maze that you have found new love for, or were inspired by, or? Well, if you have to think that much about it, probably not.
Probably not.
So, real quickly, we'd like to thank everyone for showing up live today for our talks. You can find us every week on Twitch TV/Eckamon for the live show version of this. You can also find us on iTunes. Just search for the Magic Box, right?
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully, today after the Cube League, we'll have an update on our logo because we hope to do a little branding so it's a little bit easier to find us. You can also find us on MTGcast, hopefully every week. Check out eckamon.blogspot.com for all interesting cube information. We're going to try to put more new content up there. For the most part, just the show gets posted to that location, but we had the tappedout.net link. We've had the proposed cube changes, which will now update to have the actual Dragon's Maze changes, which you can also find on my Google Doc through my Twitter account. You can find me on Twitter, at Tristan Gregson on Twitter. For Eck, it's at Young Mecha on Twitter. Shoot us questions, shoot us suggestions, shoot us love and hate, whatever you've got. You can email us at draftcube@gmail.com for any questions, concerns, interests. All that stuff goes there. We also have a donations link on the page. We are trying to bring more to the show and do new cool stuff. We've got some really great ideas and concepts I want to bring up in the near future. And your donations go a really long way there, so please donate. Anything you can give to us goes right back into the show, and more content we can bring for you.
We did get a couple during the week of streaming, which was nice.
And next week we'll make sure to mention you guys on the stream. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'll have to talk to you about doing some kind of Cube of Power promotion. I don't know if you've heard of this. This is something that Ruben Bressler actually had. The Cube of Power is actually a 9-patty high Wendy's burger.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. No.
I'll show you the
I don't want to
website.
make a house out of meat and then eat it.
Well, that could be funny for next week, but taking donations for that would be great. Yes, obviously doing a live feed from the Cube League would be a really great goal. We would love to get there, so again, donations go straight into that project. There you have it. I mean, we'll have a lot more next week. This was a good week to talk about the MTGO Cube. We wanted to do it last week, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on Twitter.
We've got a draft to run by 6 o'clock, so we've got to get going today. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next